So anyway,
Good morning, everyone.
thank you for the sympathetic report.
It looks like we're all sort of settled in, so we'll go ahead and get started.
Hey, come on, it's daylight savings time.
Yeah, right. I mean, I should be an hour ahead, right?
That's right.
I'm not. So before I get into the nuts and bolts of what we're going to talk about today, I wanted to take a little bit of time to acknowledge the theme that we continue to refer to here every year that we come. And I wanted to thank you guys for being great partners. I also wanted to sort of acknowledge the fact that FDA is not always an easy group to work with, and we understand that. So you noticed that yesterday, if you were here last night, that Steve actually pointed out that at the top of this slide it says the fifth FDA, or the fifth PhUSE and FDA collaboration. The reason that the word FDA collaboration is up there is because this year we're co-sponsoring this symposium again. We had done it originally. We'd gone through the process of actually doing a formal co-sponsorship with PhUSE. And then 2 years ago, we stopped doing it because it was such a hassle to work with FDA that we decided it was not worth the effort for anyone. So when we saw that FDA had gone through, we actually went through, and it turns out FDA created a whole new co-sponsorship process. And we saw that this announcement had gone out that there was a new process for co-sponsorship, and I looked at Trish and I said, hey, Trish, should we do this? And Trish said, does PhUSE even want us to? Is it worth it? And resoundingly, the answer was yes. So it turns out PhUSE, and you folks, all of the people who participate in the PhUSE collaborations, do actually want us to collaborate with you. And we really appreciate that because we understand how difficult it can be. And some of the items that we're going to talk about today have taken a very long time for us to get through. And we want to thank you for your patience in helping us get through these processes, but also in your willingness to continue working with us over the years. And the most important part to me, truly, is that not only are you guys willing to work with us, but you're so very welcoming, and you also appear to really enjoy having us in the room. Every year we get new people in our office, and they say, I think I'm going to go to this PhUSE symposium. What's that? And what should I do after the first session? There's like this open space, and I don't know where to go. And I always tell them, pick something that looks interesting to you and just show up, and people will be happy to see you. Universally, people are happy when you walk in the room and you sit down at their table. And we really wanted to thank you for that because it makes this experience really a joyful one for all of us. In addition to that, we wanted to thank you on behalf of OCS. You'll notice Lilium is not up here this year, so I'm going to speak for her for 2 seconds, and I think she's going to say it's okay. I didn't ask. We really want to thank you for all of the hard work that you do. When I tell people about this collaboration, people who have never heard of it, they are astounded that what we do is we get together, we talk for a very short period of time, and then we go to work, and we deliver things that are real, that come to FDA, that are helpful. We have a number of Jumpstart analysts. They're kind of spread out. There's a few right there. They're here, and if you ask them, hey, do you guys ever look at the SDRG? The answer is every single time we do a Jumpstart service, they look at the SDRG. Every single time we do a Jumpstart service, they look to see if there's an ADRG. These things are really helpful to us, and we appreciate the fact that you put a lot of work into them, and that we can use them so routinely. So thank you for all of your hard work. Okay, the nuts and bolts stuff. This PhUSE deliverable review that we keep referring to. We really wanted to recognize the work that comes out of PhUSE in a more formal way. And so we developed this process that we're calling the PhUSE deliverable review at FDA. And the way it works is that the PhUSE project teams, they create these deliverables, such as the SDRG and the ADRG, and they send them to the steering committee, which reviews and forwards these to the FDA. So these deliverables thus far have been reviewer guides, but they don't have to be. The process will work just as easily for white papers, validation rules, analysis scripts, data visualizations, and any other tool, white paper, or idea that gets dreamt up in these groups. So once the PhUSE project team is done with their deliverable, they send it to FDA via the PhUSE steering committee. The steering committee takes a look. We like to make sure that the deliverable is final and stable before we take it at FDA. And then we send it to this FDA PhUSE users group. That's a group that I run at FDA. We're just a place where we gather everyone at FDA who works on a PhUSE project, and we give them updates every year. And as a deliverable is ready for us, it comes to us and we take a look at it and we say, hey, is this something that FDA might be able to use in the future? And if the answer is yes, then we identify this person that you'll see up here, the champion. We go and we look for a champion. We have a number of champions in this room for a couple of the deliverables that have come to us. This person is responsible for ensuring that the deliverable is reviewed by FDA. It's a big job, it takes a lot of work, and it's a long-term one. It's not a quick thing. Once that champion is identified and the users group has agreed that this is an interesting deliverable that we'd like to review from the PhUSE group, we publish an FR notice, and this is a specific type of FR notice. It's an FR notice of intent to review, which is basically just a notification that FDA is looking at something. It's nothing else. It's very vague. It includes a link to the actual deliverable on the PhUSE website, and it allows people the opportunity to comment on the deliverable. So we've received comments from PhUSE folks, from industry folks, from people that we never thought were looking, and that's sort of the idea. And then once we've gathered all of those comments, we also do a parallel review internally at FDA. The champion is in charge of ensuring that that happens. And the result of the two sets of comments being put together and considered are this, we call it a report. It's just a document that we put together that has a recommendation for how FDA might use this deliverable. And we send that to an evaluation team who can take look at the report, and they can say, yes, this is great. We'd like to follow whatever your recommendation is. Sometimes the recommendation is nothing. If that's the case, we might send back to the steering committee and say, hey, we evaluated this thing. We don't think we're going to use it. It could also be, hey, we evaluated this thing, and we'd like to mention it in the technical conformance guide. We'd like to mention it in FDA guidance. If that's the case, it has to follow all of the same formal rules that every other guidance policy published document that goes out on the FDA website follows. So that's how we're doing it. We are right in the middle of this. And there are a couple of recent new developments. So one of them is that the PhUSE steering committee is working on developing a site for housing PhUSE deliverables. If you've been paying attention, you'll notice we already have one of those. But we're working on developing a new one such that if something has been referenced by the FDA or formally acknowledged by the FDA, it would be called out somehow, and then it would be versioned. The versioning is going to be the part that the steering committee is going to have to work out. That's a big job, and we thank them for doing it. And that's what's coming next. It'll be how we house and version any deliverable that has in fact been referenced in a PhUSE or in an FDA guidance or policy document. So the SDRG was the very first one that we decided to pilot for this process. We did publish an FR notice, and the review of that is ongoing. The report for the FDA recommendations is expected in spring of 2016. It's important to note this report is an internal FDA document. It's likely that it will never be shared outside of FDA, but the fact that it will exist and that it's been written and that the recommendation has been made is something that we will make sure the steering committee knows. And then it'll have to sort of follow the very slow, onerous FDA processes from there. Our second one was the Nonclinical Study Data Reviewer's Guide. The FR notice was just published last week, which was pretty exciting. We got it done in time and early, a week early. I was pretty proud. The review of that is ongoing, and the report for the review of that is also expected in spring of 2016. We understand right now that the Technical Conformance Guide actually sort of lumps these two together and isn't terribly clear about the differences between the two or not. So it's possible that contained within that report is a notification for sort of separating them, but we are going to try and put the reports for both the non-clinical and the clinical SDRG together into one step so that any possible updates to the Technical Conformance Guide could happen together and maybe make it more clear about how to use those two. So there were some folks here that worked on an Analysis Data Reviewer's Guide a number of years ago, and that's been around for a while. We've been receiving it. We know that we're getting it. We're looking at it. We don't yet have an FDA champion, and I'm kind of hoping that maybe this little reminder will help Steve Wilson remember that he told me he would help me get one. Hopefully we'll add that to the list of things coming this year. We also know that there's a study data standardization plan that's coming out. It's not quite final and stable yet, so we're sort of watching that one. We do already have a champion identified for that. So we're pretty much ready to pick that one up starting this spring and summer. And then we also know that there's a legacy data conversion plan. There's some conversation about whether this is going to be added to an existing document as an update or be dealt with as its own separate entity. And so we're waiting for that to sort of be finalized and worked out, and we're waiting for the document to be finalized before we pick it up. But we do know that it's coming, and we do know that it's something that we're paying attention to. There are others. These are not the only ones. These are just templates, and they're kind of easy ones to list. The other thing I wanted to make sure that folks note is that there's the standard scripts group. So we really admire the work that this group has been doing in terms of creating a repository, creating qualifications for all of the items that go in the repository. That's a big deal, and it's been a lot of work. And we recognize how hard it's been, but also how valuable the work that they have done is. And so we've been sending them scripts for a number of years, and we've even, as we've been updating them at FDA, we've been sending them new and updated versions. And so the actual stuff in this slide is overwhelming and not necessary, but the point is that we are really excited about the work that they're doing, and so excited that we're willing to share our scripts, and also hoping to find a way to actually use what they've already created for the own scripts that we use in-house at FDA. All right, so you're going to hear from a bunch of other people today. I'm not going to stand up and introduce them. I think you probably know pretty much all of them. The first one is the e-study guidance and technical conformance guide. These documents are out, they're final, and people should be getting ready. So Colleen's going to do a really interesting, interactive sort of poll/presentation. And if you haven't noticed, you have time, do it now. There's an app that you can download. The name of the app is on the back of your thing right here. It's the Poll Everywhere app. You can download it right onto your smartphone, and it'll allow you to participate in the poll that Colleen is doing. I have it on my phone. I'm all ready. So you can vote using your little app. So I'll speak slowly about the other ones to give people an extra minute, because I told Stephen I would do it before, and I forgot. So then you're going to hear about how good the data has been arriving at FDA. So we have been evaluating STTM data, we've been evaluating SEND data, and we've been evaluating ATOM data. And we think this is a great opportunity to share with folks what we've been seeing and some of the numbers around that. So those are pretty exciting. And then we have Helena is going to come and join us, and she's going to talk about the state of the study data reviewers guide. All of them, perhaps the non-clinical and the clinical together. And then towards the end, we'll leave a little bit for a summary of working group success and projects. So if you were here last night, you noticed that Scott stole my slide, and I think I maybe submitted my slides first, so I apologize for the overlap, but I think I win. We just wanted to bookend everything we do with the word collaboration at the top, and ensure that everybody understands that we really appreciate all your puzzle pieces, and we especially appreciate that when they all come together, that we get the results of things that are remarkably helpful and very useful for our daily jobs. Thank you.